bring in the host of Facing South Florida, Jim DeFede. And Jim, let's start with the reaction that's coming in and some of the emails that you're getting from Donald Trump supporters. What are they saying?
You know, it's no surprise that we have a situation in this country where racism exists. You're seeing some of that play out in some of the emails and comments I'm getting. A lot of derogatory hatred being spewed upon Haitians. And one of the comments that you often hear is, well, if their countries were so great, if Africa is so great, if Haiti's so great, why are they coming here? And I think that nobody denies that Haiti has tremendous troubles and problems, but it's the language that you use. This is a case where words matter. When you begin to say things like they did, like President Trump did, you disparage rather than explain, rather than understand the situation you have. And so that's the situation that we're in now. And it's just very unpleasant because the Republican Party really wanted to try to make inroads with Haitians. They tried repeatedly. They believed this was a group that could help them get inroads into the African-American community. Haitians are, very hardworking. You see them. They have that entrepreneurial spirit. I talked to Jean Monestine earlier today. He came to this country, the county commissioner, but when he came to this country, he ended up with $58 in his pocket. He grew a business out of it. It's the very types of stories that Republicans usually find so heartfelt, and yet the president doesn't seem connected to it at all.
And the revelation about what President Trump said in this meeting, diverting away from the actual topic at hand, which was the Dreamers and the immigration policy and the reform on immigration. What does that mean now for the Dreamers?
Look, I think we were headed very close to a deal on DACA. I think Democrats, Dick Durbin was conceding certain things. Republicans were conceding certain things. It looked like it was going to be one of those deals where everyone was going to get half a loaf. Nobody was going to get everything, but it was going to be the type of deal that you expect to see when legislators come together. This destroys it. Dick Durbin and the Democrats who were negotiating were already getting a lot of blowback for making too many concessions to Republicans. Now with this comment, I think you're going to see a retrenchment on both sides. You're going to see Republicans pull back to their hard, fast positions. You're going to see Democrats pull back to theirs. And one of the things I think you see is that not only does it make a deal on DACA far harder to do, it also makes a government shutdown later this month much more likely, because I think Democrats are going to feel emboldened that they're going to have to stand up now and say, we want a clean DACA bill or nothing at all.
This weekend, you have Debbie Wasserman Schultz as one of your guests on Facing South Florida. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
Mario Diaz-Balart has been a champion for his community, and I'm confident that he doesn't subscribe to what the president believes in, but it is incumbent upon all of us who believe in the United States continuing to be the beacon and haven that we have always been for the oppressed, to speak out. And I think that if you don't speak out, then essentially you are tacitly sanctioning the remarks.
I know Congressman Diaz-Balart. I know he would not condone such a statement. I've traveled to Haiti with him, but I'd like to have him come out and condemn this statement by Mr. Trump if, in fact, he was in this meeting and this statement was made before in his presence.
So one of the reasons why they're talking about Mario Diaz-Balart is because the congressman was one of only 7 lawmakers who were in the room with the president when these comments were allegedly made, and yet he has not come out and said definitively whether or not he heard the president say it. I mean, is that a tenable situation for the congressman?
I don't think it is. I understand that, I understand that Congressman Diaz-Balart believes he's playing chess here, and he's a very smart person when it comes to these types of negotiations. He thinks that if he were to challenge the president, condemn the president, that he would basically lose access to the president. He wants to remain in the room so he's part of the DACA negotiations. But at some point, you have to draw a line. I mean, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen has drawn that line. Other members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, have drawn that line. If Mario Diaz-Balart is in that meeting, he has an obligation to the people that he represents here in South Florida to say, what did he say in return to the president? Did he challenge those remarks? Lindsey Graham, who also wants to remain in that room and create some sort of deal on DACA and immigration, he at least put out a statement saying that I made it clear to the president that his views were unacceptable. I challenged the president. Mario Diaz-Balart hasn't done that. Did Mario Diaz-Balart really sit there silently as the president used these racist tones to attack members of his own delegate, of Mario Diaz-Balart's very community here in South Florida. And you have to wonder that if these comments were being made about Cuban Americans and Cuba, that whether or not Mario Diaz-Balart would be as silent as he is here. I fully believe Mario Diaz-Balart supports Haitians. He's traveled to Haiti. John Monestine said he's been to Haiti with him. You know, and Mario Diaz-Balart has come out and made it clear that he wants TPS extended for Haitians, Salvadorans, and Hondurans. But behind the scenes isn't enough anymore. You have to come out front.
Well, he says he doesn't want to divert attention from the bigger prize, which is immigration. But you're right. He represents a congressional district here in South Florida. I don't know how many Haitian Americans live in that community, but they deserve
Racism also needs to be confronted. Absolutely. It's not just the immigration matters that need to be resolved, but racism has to be. Otherwise, you end up with a situation that becomes a tacit approval.
All right, Jim DeFede, thank you very much. And Jim will have much more on the controversy surrounding the president's remarks Sunday on Facing South Florida. Don't miss it. Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on CBS 4.
All right, Silva Harapeti.